Welcome back to the Just Heat Pumps podcast. I'm Aaron,
And I'm Xerxes.
and today we're going to talk about what it's like to live with a heat pump. So often we replace old systems with cold climate heat pumps here in Denver, and there are some questions, and it's a little bit different than older systems, furnaces and AC, and we're going to talk about the differences today and what it's like,
Oh yeah.
and
And
similarities.
and we both have heat pumps in our houses.
Yep.
We've gone from the furnace, the old kind of furnace model, to the new modern heat pump, and different brands we've experienced. And then also we've had so much feedback from our customers on things that are different. And so yeah, we've got a lot to share here.
That's
Yeah.
right. To make a note, fully electrified heat pumps also, no gas.
Yes, right. We're
No
not
gas
talking
in the home.
in this podcast. We are not talking about dual fuel, at least not that experience. So more comfort, right? And we're talking about comfort consistency. The temperature in your home when you put in a modern heat pump that has variable speed technology, right? It's not a single stage or even a two stage, maybe heat pump. It has variable speed fan, variable speed technology that allows it to modulate. It meets your home heating and cooling needs where they are at that time of day, at that temperature in the season, at that part of the year. And it does so with just a smooth operation. So it's balancing room to room by just continually mixing air. And that smooth, consistent comfort really relies on the variable speed fan and motor technology because it can operate its fan at a low level. The fan continues to run most of the times in a silent mode. Well, depends on the brand, but oftentimes in a silent mode where it's just taking that air and continually mixing it. So it's always measuring the temperature. It always knows what your home needs at that moment, and it can just kind of modulate. It uses that modulating ability of a modern heat pump.
Yeah, and on the topic of noise, we often get comments or questions. What one common comment we get is, "Hey, I could barely hear it outside. Is it on?" And that's because older or standard AC systems often clang on and off when they turn on and off, and it's super loud. You can hear it blowing, and a lot of the particularly cold climate units, they have very low startups. You can barely hear it. You almost need to look at the fan to see if it's on because you can't hear it. We just finished up a heat pump install yesterday, and the homeowner said, I'm hanging out in my backyard now. I don't hear it anymore. And the outdoor fans and the outdoor heat pump units are not only very efficient, but much quieter than your standard AC systems.
And they were comparing their experience to the old AC.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly it.
You know that sound instead of
Yes.
it's like, it just has this quiet mode to it. And there is another side to that, right? So the home design, it often comes into play to get that silent operation. And sometimes just the way the house was built, it doesn't work out. So if your bedroom's right on top of the mechanical room and it has a really short run to the machine, it could, in some instances, be quite a bit louder in that scenario, and something that we've learned to look at very closely. And we've kind of considered, do we need to add some noise dampening here for this particular design? We were in a new home build.
Yes.
And this one was a fascinating story because the builders refused to put a heat pump in 2022. Right? Sorry, we don't do it. We refuse to do a heat pump. And so this homeowner was just fantastically committed to getting a heat pump and reached out to us, and we swapped it out for him. And we donated the equipment to Habitat for Humanity. He got a nice tax write-off. I mean, it was a good story.
Sure.
But what we learned about that new home is there was no effort in the builder's design or scope to have any noise dampening in the ductwork. And so basically the lungs of that home were just noisy to start. And so we learned quite a bit in that one, and we really kind of were able to come back and quiet the whole system down. But
Yeah.
it's not a sure thing, and so the brand choice is important. But I would say the majority of cases now that we install are just really super quiet. Noisy background there to contend with too. That was not a heat pump running. That was
Yeah.
an air compressor. Um, and so, but I love when they're just so quiet, because you know that that's going to be a really comfortable space to
Yeah.
live in.
And on the topic of being under a window or hearing it sometimes outside, sometimes when it's really cold out, it's going to be running at 100%.
It's going to be
Or-
running full tilt.
Yeah, it's going to be running
It's going to
full
be
tilt.
redlining, burying the needle maybe.
And when it's producing as much heat as possible, when it's say 0 degrees out, you're going to hear it. But typically the outdoor units end up in the 40 to 60 decibel range.
All of these have specifications,
yeah.
and we aim for low 50s decibel, which is literally a conversation. So I'll bring in my sound meter, and it measures decibels. So right now we're looking at 65 decibels, 60, and it's bouncing. I'm quiet.
Yeah, 40 to 50 decibels,
50,
just talking
60
here.
decibels, so quieter than that, because that 54 or 53 decibel rating on some of our more popular units is when it's at full tilt, when it's running at 100%
Yeah.
effort, 100% capacity. Usually it's in a lower mode. These things have incremental ramp downs in speed, sometimes 17 different speeds they can run in
Sure.
to make sure they're operating in a most efficient zone, and that also helps with lower energy bills, right? That they're not just kicking on like the old AC, the old loud AC that's running 75, 80 decibels. Sometimes at a painful ear level, if they're in a resonant space in the backyard, we really take some effort to minimize noise, but we use anti-vibration, stacks. We don't use plastic on the bottom or the foam pads, because those can be resonators. They allow the whole system to vibrate, whereas a solid concrete or a concrete and brick pad are going to just lock that thing in, and it will stop. It will minimize the sound.
Right.
Yeah.
And also trying not to wall mount these outdoor units, which produce resonance and noise, and can upset the integrity of the wall itself sometimes if it's brick or something. So that's a whole other topic. But great. So let's move on to the indoor experience with a heat pump. What's that like? So we've got the outdoor condenser, and then we have the indoor air handler if it's a ducted system, or mini split on the wall or floor mount unit. What's the experience with these inside the home?
Oh boy. So I mean, my experience just going from an old furnace to a new heat pump. So I didn't have AC, and the switch was dramatic. The first thing I noticed is when it turned on, it was silent. I didn't know it was turning on and off. It just kind of ran in the background most of the time. On the coldest nights, you would feel the fan running at full speed. It needs to be full speed so it delivers all of its capacity, all of its heat that's being asked of it. But overall, my house was more balanced, more comfortable, like I was mentioning. And then in the summer, going from no AC to AC, my allergies were 80% better just from being able to not have the windows open all the time and having a break from allergens during the day. And so honestly, I felt like I was living in luxury.
And one comment or question we get from homeowners who have a heat pump, within the first week or so, they're like, hey, is this indoor fan running all the time? And it might seem that way, but I'll let you speak to the science behind it. But the indoor air handler is working a lot more than the old furnace or AC, because those are one speed. This is multiple speeds and modulating and circulating the airflow a lot more. So if you could speak to why heat pumps will run the fan motor inside a lot more.
There's a number of reasons. One, the kind of most basic reason, is to mix the air throughout the house. It's always measuring that air temperature. If it's just at the thermostat, then it's not going to get a full picture of the house. So the more modern system is going to measure the temperature of the return air coming into the heat pump, and then often average that with the thermostat temperature. So it has a balanced, full picture of your home's temperature. That's one reason that it's always mixing the air, and that creates balance. Another reason to continually move air throughout the house is to make sure that the surfaces in your house are in equilibrium, right? So when maybe you have a furnace and you lower the temperature when you go to bed, and then you raise it in the morning so you're comfortable, but you sit down at the table and the chair's cold, and the table's cold, and the cups and the drinks and everything in your kitchen is cold to touch. That's because that has not yet become equilibrium with your home. And so the heat pump, it's going to take all of that, all the surfaces in your house, and balance those out. And so what that does then is it creates a little bit of a buffer for any temperature changes in your house too. So you open the front door, you get a blast of cold air in the winter. Your home can handle that because everything's already warmed up inside. It's been balanced. Yeah, and that's another really good point. Another one is, air quality. You keep the air moving in your house. You have less stagnant air, less dust. Yeah, those are the three kind of key components. So it's always measuring and moving air, and then it's also really bringing the whole environment, all the surfaces into equilibrium, just to create a more uniform comfort.
Yeah, and just the other day, speaking of one small example, a 3-level townhome, which is typical in Denver. The tenants there were complaining about the temperature differences by floor, right? And our advice was just, you can increase the blower a little bit more per hour to provide that equilibrium, and grab air basically on each floor, mix it, and just get the temperature even throughout the house, versus an AC or a furnace in the winter that's kind of blasting on and off at one speed for only a fraction of the hour, or if we're talking on per hour basis.
Yeah, and that multi-floor scenario, right? Heat rises.
That's right.
And you have your thermostat on the main floor, and so your basement could be really cold, and your third floor could be really warm, and then the only comfortable zone is that middle floor. And that drip, or if that middle floor warms up, it'll kick on the AC. It literally kicks on, and you hear it. For 30 minutes until it's satisfied, but it hasn't done anything to balance the other airs. You need that moving consistently and continuously to take that air upstairs, put it downstairs, and have that mixed and balanced in your home.
And another question or comment we sometimes get is about the air temperature that you're feeling coming out of the registers or the vents. When speaking about heating specifically, furnace heated air versus heat pump heated air. What are some big differences there?
Oh, wow. I mean, you have a flame heating the heat exchanger that's blowing air over that. So that's 170, 180 degrees. It can be at times. And so it feels like a hot blast of air, which is why oftentimes it'll kick on, run for 10 minutes, satisfy your thermostat, but it hasn't mixed around. And so the far reaches or those corners of your home are still cold, and they stay cold, and they won't warm up ever. That's another reason to have air mixing and also more moderate temperature. So the heat exchanger is around 140, 150. Air coming out of the register might be 100, 110. And so you have these very different temperatures that you're dealing with. So it's moving air more. It has to move more air to deliver the equivalent amount of heat at a slightly lower temperature. Back in the 80s and 90s, when heat pumps were new to Colorado, there was a lot of complaints about cold air coming out of the registers, and so that still is kind of a stigma, and it might be cool to the touch, but if it's at the right temperature, that it's balancing the room out, it's meeting your set point. In defrost mode. So in defrost mode, you have to melt off the condensate, which in winter is going to be ice on the outdoor unit, on the evaporator. And so it'll run in AC mode for, which is, we call it defrost mode, but it pulls some heat from the refrigerant to melt off the ice, and then it blows the fan real hard, and it looks like a big puff of steam. Some people get worried and call their contractor and say, hey, is it on fire? And no, it's just steam. It's defrost mode. It's totally normal. And so in that scenario, depending on how you've set the fan to operate, it may actually put out cold air in that case. And we've seen that. And it's one reason to have a resistant heater in line with the duct, because that can temper that air for that 1 minute. Alternatively, there is a no fan or a no cold air mode to kind of limit that effect. And so there's a number of ways to handle that. But yeah, airflow.
Yeah.
I mean,
the question usually sounds like, hey, is the heat pump working? It feels like lukewarm air. And the answer is yes, it is working. It does not feel nearly as hot as furnace air coming out. Well, good. How about maintenance with a heat pump versus an AC furnace combo or a boiler system?
Boy, maintenance, it's equally as important. One of the risks that isn't there, and let's say an older heat pump versus an older furnace, is you don't have the combustion risks, right? You're not worried about carbon monoxide poisoning. We've talked to enough customers at this point to really hear some horror stories. And one question I always ask is, why do you want a heat pump? And it's not a leading question. It's a question I'm really genuinely interested in the motivations. Like, is it a personal thing? Is it an environmental thing? Is it a comfort thing? Is it a money thing? Why do you want a heat pump? And he said, well, my mom's house exploded and we just want gas out. And I thought, wow, this person is very motivated to get off gas. And
that was from a faulty furnace?
It was a leaky furnace. It was leaking gas into her home, and they'd smelled it. It wasn't an issue, but then apparently it really surged in its leak, and her home exploded. And I hear stories like this. And similarly, another customer said, well, my mom almost died from carbon monoxide poisoning.
Sure.
And I thought, whoa, are you serious? And we talked at length about it, and she was needing extra nap times, and just, when she came home, she was always tired, and it was a long time until they figured out it was carbon monoxide leaking through a cracked heat exchanger in the furnace. And so an old furnace, you need to keep those up to date.
Sure.
But on the flip side, a healthy furnace is fine, but you need it tested, right? And it just when I think about that, I think
many stories.
The combustion risk alone,
risk.
having just flame in your house, kind of
out
of sight, out of mind.
And we finished a heat pump install a couple months back where we smelled the gas, and then we measured the gas throughout the house. It was a gas leak in the pipe. And we let the homeowner know, and they had to fix that pretty quickly. But it can be a real concern. How about the yearly maintenance of these?
Related to gas leaks too, annual maintenance. But I had Excel out front of my house this morning. And I was talking to her. I was like, hey, you working on that gas leak? And she's like, we're just taking measurements. It's not a problem. But we talked at length about it. And then I was talking to her about, well, when is it a problem? She's like, here, we're just looking at, I'm getting 4 LEL, which is the lower explosion limit, right? So they're measuring how dangerous it is, and she's poking holes all around my front yard.
Oh, wow.
So, I've had this gas leak for half a year now, and I've literally electrified my home, but it's under the street. And so she's saying, no, we have a phone number. We have an emergency response team for when it's urgent. She's like, we do that.
Okay.
So she's out there. Heat pump maintenance on an annual basis. You want to check you're not having leaks, right? And I mean water leaks, condensate leaks. You're not generating any mold or anything in your house. That's the biggest one, because when we size heat pumps, we size it for winter, and they generally are much larger than you would need for summer in Colorado. And that's because we're a heating state, right? You get 6 weeks of AC and 6 months of heat. It's basically the ratio. And so from a sizing standpoint, that's about usually 2 to 3 times as large of a heat pump you would need for winter versus summer. And so I think pre-winter is the key component. If you're going to do just one seasonal update or seasonal maintenance plan, make sure it's in fall, right, for heat pumps, because winter comes and you want your outdoor unit clean. That heat exchanger free of debris. Any debris in your heat exchanger is robbing you of heat. It's going to use the same amount of electricity, but you'd have less heat delivered to your house, so that efficiency gets hit if your heat exchangers are blocked. Same with the air filter. You need your air filter swapped out. We see, a MERV 13 or one of these high allergy pulling air filters, they get clogged in, sometimes days, weeks. So that can be a major efficiency hit, where the motor has to work harder to move the same amount of air. And additionally, it might even do, kind of lower the lifetime of your motor. So regular air filter exchanges, and I recommend, honestly, just using a thinner filter but swapping it out more often, and then maybe some local spot, allergy or air quality filters for your home. Those are some key ones. Some additional ones that you want on an annual maintenance are definitely checking for leaks. You want someone to come around with a sniffer and check for leaks, and that's the best way to do it. After you've already installed it beautifully, there are no leaks, but in 3 years it's been vibrating, it's gone through thousands of thermal cycles. You want to come and check it, right? So we do that on a regular. And then looking for any degradation of electrical components, any plastic, and foundational, structural ductwork. Yeah. And then cleaning the indoor air exchange if needed, right? If that coil becomes dirty, either from someone pulling out the air filter for some reason, or not changing the air filter enough, then that indoor heat exchanger also needs to be cleaned, so you can get that maintenance, that capacity, the full amount of heat delivered to your house. And so it's really worth it. Just recently we swapped out an air conditioner, and the homeowner was talking about AC bills in Colorado that exceeded his heating bills. And so that air conditioner was never maintained. And you could tell the heat exchanger was just full of all, like maybe a decade of pollen, and it was running really hard. There was ice all over the line set, but it was struggling. It was probably running at 10% efficiency. Wow. And it was only a SEER 10 to start with. So maybe SEER 1. SEER 1. And so $300 to $400 instead of, say, $50 per month for air conditioning in summer, so I knew something we were going to do right by that homeowner by swapping that out. I was really happy to see that go well.
Absolutely. And another question or topic that comes up is how to set the thermostat, both on the auto settings and then how we manually schedule or set the temperature as well, right? Smart thermostats versus native thermostats to the new heat pump. How about those things?
Yeah. So I prefer to brand match thermostats with heat pumps, because especially if they're using digital communication protocols. The old analog 24-volt on-off switching technology that is used by, say, Ecobee or Nest, those are operating old communication technologies at a more efficient level because they have learning algorithms too. But for the brands that we install that have digital communications, you want to sync that up properly. And I did the experiment on my house. I installed, a modern smart thermostat on my heat pump, and it cost, an extra $600 in parts and half a day to get working, and it totally changed how it operates. But it did give me some insight because I had a very old thermostat, and it was neat to see how it made my smart heat pump dumb. But it was also an experience that I wanted to have, so I could really meet people, our customers, where they request some of these things, and I was like, all right, well, what's it like? How do we do this? And it was pretty interesting. But for our thermostats that we're working on, you want to leave the temperature pretty much constant, and that's the most efficient mode. There is a recent study out of the Northwest. Actually, it's now a year old, but they studied homeowners who like to sleep cold and then ramp the temperature up, when they wake up. And so in those cases, it was their heating and air conditioning bills went up 50% in some cases. I mean, massively, because
50%.
yeah, because you've got an hour or two in the morning that you're just asking this heat pump to just rail at 100%.
Yeah.
And you've taken all that latent heat that's basically been stored up in the furniture and the surfaces of the temperature, and you've just kind of said, all right, we don't need that anymore. And so now your heat pump's running to rebalance the whole house again that you just let cool overnight. And so it can be more expensive. But those were large temperature changes. I'd say the 2 to 3 degree Fahrenheit, if you like to sleep a little cold, you might see a 10% bump in your costs on an energy cost for heating and cooling. Because it is still for that hour in the morning that it's going to be just running at 100%, trying to meet you where you are. And so the thermostats we like have eco settings, so you can do that still, but it'll do it gradually. It'll bring your temperature back up over some hours using its modulating technology versus just going to 100%, kind of max power. These heat pumps are just doing what you ask, which is warm up, cool down, warm up, and if you're doing that every day, then it's just asking it to do more work, and work is money.
And in general, we say set it and forget it. If you do want to change the temperature, maybe do it 30 to 60 minutes prior to what you want, because it doesn't blast on and off like a one-speed furnace. And it will take a little bit of time to get up to that temperature. And the more gradual you can do it, the more money you'll save on the utility bills.
Yeah, and you might have it stepwise step up to that temperature, like a degree every half hour or something, as you go to bed. You just want it to be more gradual, so it doesn't have to really work so hard to change the temperature in your house.
Yeah, great. Any other topics on the subject?
Honestly, I think the biggest one, and what motivated me to put a heat pump in my house, is to help clean up the air. We're dealing with major pollution problems here, and we're not just, doing all these heat pumps it is fun, but that's not the only reason we do them. It's to solve kind of a collective crisis for society, and just bringing it local. We're talking about pollution, right? We're talking about creating pollution in our homes. We have carbon monoxide detectors just for indoor air quality, just in case this gas furnace, starts to leak or has problems. And then you're talking about my neighbors who have to breathe all that flue gas that's burning out.
Sure.
And everybody's doing it at the same time. And so it's part of the plan and part of a kind of a pact that we've kind of taken to just help clean up our pollution issue. And so taking the dirt out of the air and running electricity on a cleaner mindset.
Right, and it helps move away from swamp coolers and the summers with the fires going on, even from the smoke coming down from Canada or California or
Colorado.
These things. And then you said before, right, Denver is sometimes in the top 10 dirtiest air cities. What was that metric?
Top 10 worst air quality in the world. In the world at various points in the year, just depending on how this kind of bowl sits in where we're at. It just, the air settles, and it just gets, you get 3 days of stagnant air, and you start to just accumulate all that pollution right here on top of us. You can stand up in the foothills and look down and say, wow, that's some dirty air. And that drives me nuts. I want to clean that up.
And we're doing that. We're working hard to do that here.
And so that homeowner experience, right, that last bit right there, it brings some peace of mind. It's pretty amazing.
Great.
I love it.
Well, I hope you liked this topic on maintenance with a heat pump.
Thanks for tuning in.
We'll see you next time.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye.